Hello everyone and welcome to this video which is in our Great Indian Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are taking a look at a game between Stoofvlees-Arasan at the ICGA Championships about a month ago. The ICGA World Championships, a very interesting competition. There's a software World Championship where everything runs on the same hardware, which may or may not suit your engine. But there's the Hardware World Championship, which is really interesting, where you get to bring your own hardware. And on top of that, the games are played from the starting position, but also an opening book is allowed. So quite a few differences with the TCC, and you can imagine that it leads to quite a few draws. Now, looking at the engines that were taking part, Arasan was running on a 24-core machine. I guess something like a very powerful laptop or a reasonably powerful desktop. Fritz was playing on two 96-core AMD Epyc processors, so that was pretty powerful. 1.5 terabytes of RAM. Jonny, which is an engine. I don't really know how strong the engine itself is, whether the engine is still developed, but it's always been capable of running on absolutely amazing hardware. And this was running on a cluster of 100 AMD Epyc processors. That's 100 times 32 cores, 3200 cores. So yeah, depth was not going to be a problem, you would imagine. And finally, Stoofvlees. Stoofvlees was running on TCC Chatter's windfishballad super machine, which is one CPU with 64 cores, 128 threads, and then 4 nVidia RTX 4090 video cards with 256 gigs of RAM. And I mean, that's just way better than what the TCC has got, and chess.com as well. I mean, if you're looking at the strength of the engine, Stoofvlees was clearly best with it's in Division P, quite high in that. Fritz is sort of lower TCC League 1, Arasan higher League 2, so not too much difference between the two. Jonny, I don't know at all. I tried to find some stuff, but only really saw updates from quite a long time ago. So yeah, not really clear. I mean, I think the strength of Jonny is really its hardware support. So actually, when you're looking at it, the mixture of hardware and also software, probably Arasan was going to be the weakest engine. Running on the weakest hardware as well. And actually, this was where Stoofvlees did really well, beating Arasan twice, and that really made the difference and gave Stoofvlees the win. The games it won were very nice. We're going to take a look at one of them, which is my favourite of them. And, well, what I've also done here, I've done my normal engine matches between Stockfish and Dragon, but I also downloaded Arasan 23.5, which with book included. And I'm sort of assuming that it's the same as what was playing. And, well, it's quite interesting to see where Arasan's book ended and where it started working things out for itself as well. So, well, this fairly mysterious position that you can see in front of you was reached after about 13 moves. Let's see how we got there. So, 1b3. This was Stoofvlees' choice for the championship, and worked pretty well, it has to be said. e5, bishop b2, knight c6, e3, and now d6. This is Arasan's book, as far as I can tell. A long time ago, actually, we got some sort of bonus events where a lot of games with d5 were played, and well, I mean, this was leading to some very interesting positions. Stoofvlees played a number of games with this, nice games, and I think I analysed them on the Game Changer site if ever you're interested. But yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting lines after bishop b5, bishop d6, f4. I played 1b3 a lot when I was 14, 15, and I always enjoyed getting this line. But in principle, it seems that that this line is basically even. Queen h4 check is one idea that's the most common in human games, and then f6. The engine's also trying f6 immediately. Queen h5 check, g6, queen h4, and now this very nice idea, just sacrificing the pawn on f6, queen f6, rook f8, and here Dragon and Stockfish were agreeing a draw. Well, very sharp still, of course, but just in general, you feel that black's quite nice and active, and we'll be able to find a decent way of playing there. So would have been quite interested to see what Stoofvlees would have done against 3d5. Might be possible that that the Stoofvlees guys actually saw that Arasan played these positions with d6 and just decided to go for it. It has very much because these positions are kind of amorphous. Lots of things can happen. You can do a lot of moves behind the scenes. There's no way that that the weaker engine is going to be able to kill the position dead. So yeah, I mean that's really that's absolutely what you want, basically. So knight f3 played by Stoofvlees, and now g6 still in book. I also think that I think I'm saying right that that knight f6 was also Arasan book as well, but g6 played in this case. And now c4. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you do something like this, I was always looking for d4. Actually, I had a game, very similar game with Black against Julian Hodgson, and he played d4 quite quickly, and I thought it was slightly awkward. But yeah, of course, it does lead to simplification straight away. So yeah, maybe not exactly what you're looking for. But these were games of I think it was Stockfish against Dragon here. Knight c3. Knight d7, Queen d2, Knight f6, and castles, which was pretty nice here, really. And actually, Stockfish was playing games against Arasan in this line and doing quite nicely. Shall I show you? I'll show you one game, shall I? So castles, h4. Look at this. b3, bishop b2, then castling queenside and h4. Knight d4, knight e4, takes, queen e1. Knight f6, f3, d5, h5, off we go. Takes g4, knight f6, e4, Stockfish just throwing everything forward. e5, queen d2, c5, queen h2, knight f5, boom, in we go. And, well, this just led to an absolutely massive attack for Stockfish and a win soon after. So yeah, I mean, this is also quite interesting. The amazing idea was g takes f5, and now g5 takes king b1, and well, Stockfish followed up with rook d2 to g2, and we've got the bishop on g7 pinned. When the queen moves away, that means we can follow up with queen h6. So absolutely incredible idea, g5 in this position. Not at all what you'd expect. So yeah, some great play there from Stockfish, and yeah, I mean, I do think that d4 is quite a reasonable move there. But Stoofvlees played c4. Not sure whether this was Stoofvlees' book. Might well have been, just to keep things tight at the back. Bishop g7 and bishop e2, and knight f6. And I think Arasan's book either ends here or goes on a couple of moves. It seemed to go out and then come back. I do have to say that the move that I was kind of more keen on was to play knight h6, and funnily enough, Stockfish was also playing this way. Just I mean, Black's main counterplay is to move the kingside pawns forward. So having the knight on h6, allowing f5 to happen, sort of felt quite natural there. And well, this was how some of the engine games were proceeding: d4 castles, e4, f5, and g5. And that's this was a game. Let's have a look. Who was it between? Yeah, Arasan against Stockfish, which was quite dangerous somehow. Rook c1, bishop d7, queen c2, a6, bishop e8. Get the pieces over. Not bad at all, I mean, another idea would be just to play f5 immediately and then play knight f6. I mean, knight f6 is fine, but it's all rather quiet somehow, and you do run the risk that you're just going to end up with black side of an English, which is just a tiny bit worse for Black. So d3, castles, and then a3. And Arasan, I'm pretty sure, was out of book here. And yeah, this is one of those confusing moments where, when I saw what Arasan had played, I said, "Oh my goodness, you can't really be serious about that." But then you put it on my engines for Stockfish and Dragon. They all played the same plan. Yeah, rather surprised, to be honest. But there we are. Knight d7 was played, and the idea that they want to do is to play the knight round c5 to e6. Yeah, I mean, first of all, obviously, I'm seeing this and thinking, well, you could have just got the knight out of the way anyway. But it just feels weird to put the knight on e6 because it's sort of in the way of a future d4 to d5 somehow. It feels like a strange place for the knight to me, and also takes 3 moves to get there. But okay, that's. Both Dragon as well was looking to play this, and even Stockfish was Stockfish was playing a5 first, but then after playing knight d7 and then knight e6. So yeah, I don't know. Really interesting. It's something that I don't think would have occurred to me at all. And if somebody did it against me, I'd really be thinking this was not a good maneuver at all. So. Knight d7, knight c3, knight c5. Yeah, and now Stoofvlees starts to point out just a little defect to this whole plan, and plays the move h4, what we always expect from engines. Yeah, an interesting point about this is that certainly in the games that I played with Arasan, and yeah, I mean Arasan here was running on 96 threads, 48 cores, so stronger, I think, than the machine running at the ICGA. But Arasan was always expecting early castling, and loads and loads of Stoofvlees' moves were simply not expected. And as you'll see, Stoofvlees basically didn't castle. So I'm sure that was probably some slight sense of confusion there for Arasan. It was certainly not ever going to anticipate Stoofvlees' top moves, I think. So h4 played, which to be honest feels very natural. I mean, you've moved this knight away from the king side. So yeah, let's have a look. How do you want to react to this move? Do you want to play h5 and weaken this square, or do you want to play h6 and then that also weakens g6? Or do you want to allow white to get counterplay with h5? Well, that last one you shouldn't do. And yeah, h5 is a pretty decent idea. H6 would have been my choice, and it was also Stockfish's choice as well. But it gets quite sharp. I mean, this is a game of Stockfish against Dragon. D4, play the knight round to d7 now. H5, d5, knight d4, rook e8, castles. Quite sharp. White's got a nice space advantage, but black's quite nicely entrenched on the dark squares. Yeah, I mean, always very hard to know how to react to h-pawn advances, which is why they're so effective. But yeah, I mean, in general, I do tend to prefer to be a little bit more conservative and not give white a g5 square for free, but try and stop the h-pawn on h6. But b4 played knight e6 and then g3, which again really surprised me. Yeah, Arasan again expecting castling. Feels a bit odd for a human when you've played h4, h5, but the engines generally don't seem to pay much attention to that. But g3 from Stoofvlees really surprised me. But it's a very interesting move. I mean, on the one hand, you might well be threatening d4, and you're stopping, after e takes d4, e takes d4, you're stopping a knight coming into f4, which is quite nice. And the other one simply is, well, the other one is the one that I hadn't expected at all, which is the maneuver that Stoofvlees comes up with. So knight e7 was played, and now bishop f1. What is Stoofvlees' idea? Maybe to put the bishop on g2, but that's not where it goes to. Actually, to play the bishop to h3, put some pressure on this knight and be able to take the knight with the bishop and play the knight into g5 at some strategic moment. Very, very interesting. It would never occur to me, I have to say. But Stoofvlees did it, and I think that Stockfish was also picking up on the idea once you put it in there. So this is very interesting. These are very interesting moments all the time. I mean, from a human point of view, I'm always thinking, well, shouldn't I be breaking in the centre somehow? If white's undeveloping and just playing all over the place. Actually, the engines thought that this was very pleasant for white. I mean, we've got pressure against the 5 pawn, and yeah, okay, I've just played bishop f1, but I can play bishop g2 and castles pretty quickly, so there's no real danger against my king. And yeah, what you actually do with this e5 pawn is a little bit of a dilemma. This was one game actually, Dragon against Stockfish. Here, f4, takes, a little bit similar actually to what's happened in the game here, and then e4, takes. And yeah, this is quite pleasant for white. I mean, knight c3, queen c2, knight b5 played, which was a good idea, just get the knight round to d4. But, you know, the black king is loose. We've got the g file. We've got some sort of long diagonal as well. A beautifully entrenched knight on g5. Again, you know, the engines hold it, and but yeah, you know, it would be very easy as a human player just to go completely wrong and miss a tactic and lose. You know, I mean, that's the thing, and well, yeah, not a great situation. C6 was something that I was kind of keener on, the idea being bishop g2, d5. But the engines just want to go castles, and yeah, I mean, they just seem to feel that this pawn on e5 is a little bit of an irritation, you know, with the knight and the bishop lining up on there. And yeah, you know, white will play queen c2, actually maybe even move this knight round b1 to d2 to pressure that pawn, and then maybe expand on the queen side. It's a nice English position for white, and black doesn't really have any. It's not obvious, the counterplay. You've got to, you know, the pawn's in the centre, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them somehow. So, but again, I think c6 would have been quite reasonable. But I mean, let's be clear about this. Black's doing fine in this position, but I think that the Stoofvlees guys must have been very, very happy with this, because it's amorphous. You know, it's Stoofvlees is coming up with moves that Arasan is never expecting. So yeah, there should be a lot of possibilities to sort of navigate to a pawn structure that the Stoofvlees assesses better than the opponent. So bishop h3 played. So actually, you're just anticipating some counterplay with black with f4. You can just take off and go knight g5, and we're going to see that in the game. So bishop d7 played by Arasan. Yeah, Stockfish wanted queen e8. Queen e2, and then queen f7, just putting the queen round there, and yeah, I guess maybe giving a bit of extra power to an eventual f4 there. You know, that's the idea. So yeah, I mean, perfectly fine. But bishop d7 is quite a reasonable move there. And now queen e2. Slightly mysterious, this one. The point is, if white goes queen c2, then black goes bishop c6, and this knight is a little bit loose. So what Stoofvlees did was play queen e2. Arasan played c6 to try and you know, support d5, and now Stoofvlees played queen c2 because black can no longer play bishop c6. You know, once again, nothing much happening for black. Nothing really wrong yet, but again, finding counterplay is the key in this position. So yeah, d5 was the move I was looking at, but yeah, knight e2 is a little bit annoying. Pawn on e5, slightly difficult to defend. If you go d4, e takes d4 in this position, and well, we'll start thinking about this pawn. There's some sharp lines with f4 here. This was dragon against Stockfish. Takes, gf4, e takes d4. Which is quite interesting, but it's a double pawn sacrifice, but two bishops, and white's pawn structure a bit ruined. Also not clear where this white king is going to end up, because black's going to try and play a5 here. Well, for example, bishop c3, a5, and then an exchange sacrifice was Stockfish's idea here. So this sort of thing might be possible, but yeah, it's requiring a lot of ingenuity from black. Something like rook f7, rook c1, b6. This was what Dragon was playing as black, and queen d2, a5. You know, just playing in the same sort of amorphous way, keeping all your options open and then just breaking at some certain moment. You know, also quite decent. Well, Arasan kept on playing quite well. b6, a4 from Stoofvlees, and now played the move rook c8. Yeah, I mean, quite natural. Just put the rook opposite the queen. And now another mysterious move from Stoofvlees. This is a real Stoofvlees special, rook b1. Not 100% sure what the aim is of that. Maybe anticipating some opening of the b file somewhere. Maybe just wanting to bring the bishop back to a1, and maybe eventually putting the queen round to b2. Yeah, not sure at all what Stoofvlees was looking for there. But what it does, this move, it provokes Arasan into some action, and that is f4. And yeah, it's not the favourite move of my engines, although it's not a bad move. They were more looking at stuff like b5, for example, castles and then a5, really breaking on that queen side, which, yeah, very sharp, very interesting there. But after f4, Stoofvlees played a very interesting idea, and this has been the positional idea, you can tell, all along, because, yeah, I mean, it just fits in with this move, bishop g3, bishop f1 to h3. Stoofvlees took on f4, took on e6, and then played e4, and yeah, this is a really, really interesting pawn structure. So we've kind of, what white has done here is kind of absorbed all this counterplay from black, because, you know, f4, you're hoping to open things up, and here actually Stoofvlees has managed to just leave one file open and then close the center, and of course the file that you've opened is really the one that white is going to make some use of on the G file there. So, okay, you've given up the two bishops, but, well, okay, your light squares are weaker, but on the other hand, a central pawn structure on light squares has been set up. So, yeah, you know, not too bad at all there. Yeah, I mean, the move that I was really thinking of simply was to play d5. I mean, that's the natural human move in this position. I mean, white's done all this stuff, king's in the center, let's open the center like that. And, well, it doesn't look like such a bad move. Although, yeah, it must be said that Stockfish wasn't playing it quite as I expected. So it was also Stockfish's move as well. But after queen d7, f3, I mean, I was still looking, can I blast things open somehow? But Stockfish just wanted to play knight e2 c5 and then bishop e5 here, and actually just claim that well, you've got the king side completely blocked in there, and yeah, further no problems at all for black, but lots of draws from that position, and no. Even Stockfish, I think when Stockfish played Arasan, it still as black, it still wasn't managing to win this. So yeah, you know, I mean, quite even. But well, Arasan played bishop g4, knight g5, and then bishop h6. And this is yeah, again, the engines were not dismissive of this move, but it does look so amazingly strange to you know, leave this diagonal open and take off on g5, you know, yeah, which also, you know, well, it closes the g file, but then it opens the h file, and you know, the black king's just always going to be in long-term danger there. Feels like a very strange move, but my engines seem to think that it was sort of reasonable. The only thing that you can say about it is that you know, these sort of decisions, you can still be at you know, at 0.00, but yeah, you know, as we examined in Game Changer, you know, when we spent a whole chapter looking at 0.00 positions, you know, there are those types of positions that contain an enormous degree of positional risk in them, and yeah, the step for those from 0.00 to a huge evaluation is really very small, because all of the seeds of downfall are contained, and you might be holding them dynamically at the moment, but small mistake and it disappears. And this is very much what happens in this game. So bishop a1 played by Stoofvlees, which I quite liked, just freeing b2 for the queen. And then bishop takes g5. Yeah, again, Stoofvlees looking to play d5 here. And actually, I was very pleased because Stoofvlees actually went for Stockfish actually went for something that I was trying to make work. I never found the right way of making it work, but what I wanted to do was, well, after knight e2, Stockfish playing this move knight f5, which was something that I was looking for all the time. Basically, you know, try and open up the center, and also open up the line of the queen on this knight, you know, and just say, well, everything's going to be open. The white king stuck in the center here, going to be danger. And for example, e takes f5, we go takes, rook e8, pinning this one, and then after f3 takes, rook h2. Well, we've got various moves. Bishop takes c2 was what Dragon played. Rook e2, queen g5, king f1, f3, and well, Stockfish against Dragon agreed a draw here. Thank you, guys. But well, I think it's pretty clear that the black's got quite a lot of counterplay here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, I can imagine the position's equal, but I can also imagine that that white's going to have to sweat a little bit here to deal with all the threats. So yeah, I mean, this was Stockfish's choice, and yeah, as I said, I was trying to make this d5 and knight f5 ideas work, but I was looking at this mainly a little bit later, so it was nice to see that that happened there. Yeah, another idea after knight f5 is knight e6, queen e8, and then f3, and well, yeah, we've got a bit of a mess here, really. I mean, we're going to be taking on e2 at some stage, and yeah, lots of compensation, lots of counterplay, you know. So very sharp positions, these, but yeah, bishop g5 I don't like at all, to be honest. H takes g5, and now rook f7 played, which is a pretty sensible move, I guess, just covering g7. The one thing as well is that again, d5, knight e2, knight f5 was what Stockfish was, and also Dragon as well, were looking for. Similar idea to on the last move. So after rook f7, queen b2, king h7, rook h4, and this was quite interesting because Dragon was starting to get very pessimistic for black here, and Stockfish was still sort of, well, it's all right, you know, but Dragon was getting very pessimistic. Possibly it was overestimating a tactic, but yeah, still, there is a lot of danger here, and certainly after Arasan's next move, Stockfish thinks white is just completely winning. Yeah, it turns that quickly, basically. Again, d5 would be the human move. I mean, I could not sit still in this position. I mean, I would simply want to get out. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting ideas here. One idea for white is to play the move f3 here. And after bishop f3, the idea is rook takes f4. And after rook f4, we've got knight d5. Ooh, threatening mate on g7 here, as well as threatening knight takes f4. So you go rook f7, knight f6 check. And, well, actually, Arasan was playing rook f6 here. And after queen f6, queen f8, king d2, Stockfish actually managed to win this, which is pretty impressive, really. But king g7 was the move, and this is actually apparently a draw by repetition. You can throw in some moves, but basically knight d7 check, knight to f6 is the main draw by repetition. So that's quite interesting. C takes d5, also possible. C takes d5, and then rook g4 and king d2. And this was Dragon's line, and I think the reason why Dragon was so optimistic, you're going to bring the rook over to h1, and we're going to get some sort of mate there. But apparently after d4, we play a knight d5, knight c6, rook h1 check, queen b3, queen g5, queen c4, f3 check. Position is equal according to the engines. Wow. Who knows? Who knows? Another idea, this was my idea, rook h1, king g8, knight d5. Black was even playing here a knight f6, which was quite interesting. Takes, takes, king f7, e5, king e6, and yeah, those pawns are quite difficult to defend there. Rook e1, you go g3 and start distracting the white king. And if you go takes and king c3, looking to play d4, we've got this standard mechanism in rook endings where you just check a king away, basically, you know, and yeah, just seems that you can just about get rid of everything. Although, I mean, to be honest, this rook ending did not look trivial for black to me, but apparently the engines feel that you can actually draw this. Rook a3, takes, takes, and there's no way through. Rook d7, king e5, a5. Oh no, actually, sorry, I'm seeing this one wrong. This was Stockfish beating Arasan in the end in this ending. So no, this one was really good. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looks incredibly dangerous to me, you know. But presumably, Stockfish as black would be able to hold this. So, but after queen d7, got this move b5. This is really nice, actually. The idea here is to stop black from playing d5, and I think that's why Stockfish gets so pessimistic, because if you play d5, I go b takes c6, and then afterwards I can just win this d5 pawn. So this counterplay is not really happening, but it's still very, very fraught. I mean, I was assuming that that Stoofvlees' idea was to go b takes c6, but now the engines say that black is winning. It's just incredible, right? But the point is that the knight comes into e5, and this whole knight f3 check idea is just really, really dangerous. So you can't allow that. But what Stoofvlees does is go knight e2. And we're just threatening knight takes f4 in this position, and if rook f4, then we've got queen g7 checkmate. So bishop takes e2 played, right? But now we go queen takes e2, and frankly, even Arasan now starts to win lots of games against Stockfish from here. So you can tell how dangerous it is. And yeah, the big problem here is that this bishop on g4 has disappeared, so the protection of the king side has also disappeared. So very, very difficult position there. So f3, queen e3, and now d5. And yeah, this is now the funny part, because if you ask me, how you're doing as white, I'd sort of say, well, looks very murky, but I'd back myself with white really, in this position, because yeah, long diagonal, weak king, possibility of sacks, f3 pawn feels exposed. But for the engines, this is just like totally winning. It is quite amazing, But bishop f6 played, which is a very nice move, just threatening queen f3 and then rook h5. So d takes c4 played. I was looking at knight g8, and here, quite surprisingly, the engine's just like bishop c3, d takes c4, and then d4. And again, very nice. The idea then is that b5 is going to clear away the c6 pawn, and that's just going to give white a double pawn center. And wow, just a lovely sort of barrier there. Because I mean, actually, the pawns on d5, e4, for example, the pawn on e4 stops the black knight from coming to f5. They're they're absolutely beautiful, those pawns. But I mean, so I'm surprised when you say that this is totally winning for white. Like +5 or something. But yeah, okay, the engines think that it is. So. They're going to be happy with it. I can see a clear advantage. I just can't see such a win somehow. But after d takes c4, queen takes f3 played, king g8, just stepping out of rook takes h5, and now another very fine move here, queen h3. And it's really this thing, it's something that we really highlighted very strongly in Game Changer. It's mannerism of AlphaZero, swap off the opponent's active pieces, leave the opponent with passive pieces. And well, looked at it again in Silicon Road, all games by other engines, not just AlphaZero doing this, and well, you just see it all the time now, and Stoofvlees doing that as well. What this pawn on e4 is doing is, stopping this knight from getting to f5 or to d5. So yeah, I mean, really, the strength, the relative strength of the minor pieces, there's quite a big difference between that. And of course, if this knight is stuck on e7, then and the d file gets opened, or the c file, then it's the white rooks that are going to be able to exploit this, because this rook on f7 is also restricted. So I mean, I ran a lot of engine games from this position, and they were all turning out badly. For example, takes, c takes b5, a takes b5. Rook e8, rook e3, knight c8, and then we just go d4. Knight d6, bishop e5, and we're going to get in f4, and we're going to get in d5, and we're just squeezing and winning. Again, for a human player, you could go wrong in this, but yeah, the engines just don't go wrong. This was just 1-0 all the way. Knight f5 was what Stockfish was trying mainly. King f1, knight g7, quite ingenious way. But then you go d4 again, and again it's this thing, c takes b5, a takes b5, and you've got these two pass pawns in the centre that are just going to roll through with the f pawn joining in as well there. So yeah, just very, very painful here. I ran loads and loads of engine games here, and none of them worked out at all for black. So yeah, again, it's not obvious. Don't worry if you sort of say, well, I see a nice advantage for white, but I do see some chances maybe for black. Don't worry about it, because yeah, I thoroughly understand what you're saying. Just simply that for the engines, it's one of those things that they think is totally clear. And Arasan in the game played rook takes f6, and well, then from a human perspective, I'm saying, okay, this is clear now, you know. So it's funny somehow how those things how those things change. The engines just kept it the material balance the same somehow. It's much harder for humans to really make that decision. Yes, this is 100% winning. Yeah, with material balance, it's easier to make that step. Lots of ways to win now. I mean, d takes c4 is very sensible, but e5 was Stoofvlees' way. Queen takes c5, check rook e4, which is pretty powerful. Just the queen's looking to come into e6 or d7. So queen f5 was played, swapped off, and now b takes c6, unusual way of doing it. D takes c4 was also good. D takes c4 was Arasan's way of winning, but it beat Stockfish from here, so yeah, good enough. But b takes c6, c takes d3, and rook c1. So we've got our big pass c pawn there. Rook c7, rook e8 check, rook d8, king e6, king d2, king e7, rook d3. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's not again, doesn't look totally trivial for me. I mean, certainly in a blitz finish, I've definitely lost these in bullet or as white. You know, I mean, normally on time, but conceivably on position as well. But obviously for engines, it's not a particular issue here. We can stretch a little bit and go rook b8, and this is quite a nice way of doing it, just coming around to b7. And actually in the game, it looks like king d5 was played, and then Arasan resigned, because obviously the c7 rook is hanging. But if you go king d6, I just ran some engine games from there. We go king d3, knight g7, rook e1, rook f5. We just, we end up sort of picking up pawns and eventually winning. You know, rather strange engine way of doing things all the time, but Stockfish beat Dragon in this way, and it just wins. Yeah, slightly better technique than Janowski against Rubinstein there, it must be said. So there we are. That was the game. A very, very interesting game. I mean, you know, if you told me this was a human game, I would really have assumed that White was the superior player and trying to keep things as needing to win in a crucial game and just keeping things as unclear as possible, until time trouble struck, something like that, really. That's kind of what happened in the whole game, because this move rook b1 I think was key. Just getting Arasan to go for f4 to take some action. And once we got to this position, very complicated pawn structure, all sorts of competing balancing factors, then I think that an engine of Stoofvlees' caliber was always going to cause Black an awful lot of problems. And it's basically what we saw. Arasan didn't play it badly, but just took some very risky decisions here. In particular, swapping off that dark squared bishop and giving White total control over the dark squares, kingside dark squares, and then not following up with sharp play d5, knight f5 as a piece sack, but just trying to play quietly. This just didn't work. And this move b5, stopping this future d5, was excellent there, and the finish was gorgeous. In particular, I always like when this theme comes up, because it's a theme that I really think is something that human players don't do enough and could definitely do more. Real basis of great technique is just drain the life out of the opponent's position. There are some players who convert like that. Karpov was very good at that. Kramnik also strong in that department. But a lot of players just don't do that enough, including myself. They try and find concrete wins rather than just letting the removing the key supports of the black of the opponent's position and then just letting it fall apart. Move like queen h3, really gorgeous from Stoofvlees. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. My apologies for not doing this game sooner. Just work has been a little bit crazy. If any of you are in IT and work with Citrix environments, then you might guess what I've been busy with the past 2 or 3 weeks. Hopefully get started again. I've got lots of analysis of stuff, so hopefully get started recording some videos again. More engine games, more human games based on Reengineering the chess classics, and hopefully that'll be enjoyable. So there we are. If you enjoyed the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new books, Reengineering the Chess Classics and The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. Really think that if you enjoyed these videos, I think you'll love those books. And otherwise, thanks for watching and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks very much.